I'm really happy to have you on this call today, and hopefully whatever you have questions, try to put them in the chat so we can really, later on get Layla's feedback from first-hand experience, not just high level. Yeah. So just 1 second. Okay. So now that we can start, I'm really interested to understand more. We ran a survey, Laila, so that we ran a survey since last week, okay? And we are really happy about the survey, how many people respond to this survey. I'm just trying to pull the survey up.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got something wrong with me and it kicked me out.
You are back?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry for that.
No problem, no problem. So we ran a survey about smart cities, okay? And what smart city initiatives do you think are the most important? We gave them 4 different options, or actually 3 and other to comment. Transport, technologies, urban life, e-government, and the 4th one was other. And with that, the majority voted that transport technology. So would you mind defining what is really smart cities?
To me, I will say it is mixed for everything you have
Laila, do you
mentioned.
mind opening your camera?
Okay, I'm opening my camera. You can see me?
No. Wait, let me see. Wait. Maybe you have 2 accounts. Okay, hold on.
Okay. Have you seen it?
Sorry. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
You can see me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I can say that what you have mentioned is all about it. Because when you speak about smart city, it's about everything. The first thing that I will have to say, I have to link it to sustainability. Because smart cities is about our cities, the cities that we are living on it. So if when we mention the sustainability, it's about me as Laila, or you, Rodi. Are we really satisfied or happy to live in that city? For example, today I met one lady and she said, I was on a city, it's a very well-known and so on, but I did not feel comfortable, although it is very well developed and so on. But she said, it is not the city that I really want to live on it for the rest of my life. So this is one question that we need to ask ourselves. Are our cities sustainable? Are we going to live on it forever, or it is temporary? So we have to link the smartness with sustainability, because some cities, they are becoming full of buildings. There is nothing green on that area. Sometimes also because I'm as a citizen, I want green city. I want to feel that I'm able to walk, to feel secure, safe, to work on that. And when we define the smart city, although the technology is coming to solve some challenges, but we have to also to make sure it is planned very well as urban planning, then it has all the basic services as different sectors. And when we say different sectors, what are the basic services I am as a citizen that I will need in this city, and to not let me immigrate, for example, or transfer or drive to the other city so I can get that basic services. Do I have schools nearby? Do I have, for example, very well hospitals nearby? Right, so all of that in one city. So yes, and then I can use the technology so it can make my life easier. For example, do I have to register my kids by going or driving to that school, or I can register them from home? So you can see how we are now using the technology, because the technology started when, some mega cities, and when I say mega cities, it's about the cities that have population, more than 10 million population, like Tokyo, Shanghai, and other cities in India. These cities, because of the huge population of these cities, they started getting a lot of challenges, because you have a lot of people living in that city. means that you are going to have traffic issues, you are going to have pollution issues, you are going to have environment issues. People are not going to have, for example, jobs, which means that will cause other challenges. For example, people are not finding even food to eat, which will push them, for example, to robbery or making crimes and so on. So we are trying to use the technology also to empower the digital economy, create more jobs for the people aligned to the smart city concept. That is, in my general, that we have to make sure that smart city is covering all of the, what you have mentioned, Ruby. Because what is the point of having just technology and there is no security? What is the point of having, technology and there is no green yards for kids or the families to play back and so on? So we have to make sure that we have integration of all of these components in our cities.
Oh, that's great that you mentioned all of these components, because many of us actually know that smart cities is about only technology and that aspect of technology. It's not any more or any less, where actually it's way beyond the technology part. The technology is only the enabler and all of the latest technologies, because we know we have not just IT, AI, physical and operations and advanced systems and so on, and robotics today also are taking the role. It's not about only those, it's way beyond of this, and this is where Errol, working with Errol earlier on, maybe later on you will have your own question, Errol, about also the protection of the environment and where do you want to, well, this is where you started, where do we want to live, how we're going to be giving back to planet Earth, as they say. So thank you for that definition, and then I'll move to my...
If I can also add one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
Rودي. Finally, it's all with the definition of smart city. It's about improving quality of life for citizens. And as I mentioned earlier, how can we improve the quality of life of citizens and make them happy? And when I say make them happy, it reminds me with a small village in Portugal. It's called Guimarães. It's one of the oldest cities in Portugal. I lived there for 3 months. Most of the people who are living on that city are the old people. But you can see that people there are so much happy. And I loved, the concept of happiness. And it was secure. I am as a woman, and I'm also in a very foreign country. It was, okay for me to go at night and walk because it was really secure. But I cannot, for example, walk alone in big cities. So, and what I love on that city, the mayor of that city, he tried to attract some investment. Although it's a small village, but they have the office of the UNU IGAB. IGAB is one of the United Nations offices. So instead of it is to be in Lisbona or Porto, which are the two biggest cities in Portugal, it was there in Guimarães. And I was really surprised to see, how can you do it? So you can see, the mayor of that village, he was so much, clever. He said, I want to attract more people to visit us, because he also wants to encourage the young generation to live in Jemarash, not just the old generation. That's why he made it, to host the office of the United Nations to be on that city. So I really loved also to take Jemarash as one of the examples, because when I lived there, I felt happy. And I'm always, linking the happiness with smart cities.
Yeah, and this is a good example of how you can drive economy, drive, not just security and having a better place to live in, but also the economy. Because I would love to have myself allocated there because of that freedom, working at night or having that freedom of, safety is crucial. So, Laila, do you mind telling us about the state of smart city in the Middle East, and of course later on in what's happening in Oman?
Okay, that would be really interesting to share, because I'm sure that most of us, around the world, we have almost like similar stories. When we started at Oman, it was a bottom-up approach. And I already mentioned that earlier, my story, how it started with the Smart City project. It started in 2017 till 2020. We started just as a knowledge, sharing platform. So when we started, it was not clear for everyone what we really want to achieve. And we said we will keep on the, in the knowledge sharing, and we have conducted different hackathons and so on. The good news that by 2020, we have the vision of Smart City part of Oman 2040 vision. So you can see the impact of the first phase, and now it's becoming now top-bottom approach. Now, the top organizations started talking about smart cities. Now we have leading organizations when it comes to the smart cities, because everyone they're asking me a question, who's going to lead smart city? And I'm telling them it's not one sector. It has to be at a national level. So we can have two approaches when it comes to the smart cities. It has to be at the national level and then at cities level. Because, in Oman, we have 11 governments. Each governor has different cities under him. So we decided to, we the different organizations, because I was part of the Minister of Transportation, Communication and ICT sector. We were handling the, the part of smart city with the technology. And we have another organization, the Urban Planning Organization, which is part of the housing. They launched the strategy of the urban planning last year. And the good, experience about that, we tried to implement our strategy similar to China experience. So when it comes to the global collaboration, we are trying to see the best practices that we can bring it with us and learn from their experience. Because China started, earlier, because they have huge cities with huge population. So they started first with the urban planning. As soon as they started with the urban planning, they have pilot projects. It's almost the same story what we have in Oman. We have the urban planning have been, launched last year. And then we say, let us have pilot projects. And who's going to work closely with these pilot projects? It will be, for example, we from the technology side at the government level, and also the governors, so they can implement these, the solution when it comes to the smart cities in their cities. And also Ministry of, urban planning, to make sure that they are giving the support to these cities when it comes to the data or the urban planning and so on. And, when we have recently, there was a cyclone that hit Oman. It was called Shaheen, and we have 3 cities in the coast of Oman. It was they were very close from the, the coast. So a lot of houses, thousands of houses, they were damaged. So the good news that the urban planning, they came and they say, here is our new strategy. How can we build new houses in, blocks where people can live peacefully away from the coast? So we can be, we can avoid such cases in the future. The technology are coming, they say, okay, we're gonna support you with the city, with providing smart solutions. And, the governors, they are coming from the other side, they say, we're gonna push it so we can achieve it. So you can see the integration of different sectors when it comes to the implementation. Also, we have, 5 main stakeholders when it comes to the smart cities. And as I say, it's not about one city, one sector going to achieve that vision. The first thing that I have to mention is the government. Why we need the government? And as I mentioned, each one of these government bodies that I have mentioned earlier, they have specific role. And the government, they are always having the regulations, the policies, the laws. So when it comes to the technology, sometimes we need them, or the infrastructure, we might need new laws, new regulations, so they can accelerate the process of smart cities. And the private sector, I always call the private sector the pioneers, the one who are going to implement the smart city projects, because it's everywhere, not just in Oman or the Middle East, everywhere. The government, they say, we are not ready to take risk and invest in technology. You private, take the risk, do it, and we will watch you and support you. So it's always, the private sector who are coming and they say, we will do and implement this project. We are bringing to you smart solution, And I'm really so much proud to say that I'm now part of NEC. It is a semi-government, but we are mostly a private sector. So we are trying to implement smart solutions. So when it comes to the smart solutions, we go to the government, or let me say to the organization, and we say, we are bringing our funding model. And when I say funding model, this is one of the issues that I need to focus on it. It's everywhere. Everyone is speaking about the funding model. What is the best funding model for smart cities? Because they always consider technology is so much expensive. So how can we really, learn from the other funding models around the world? We at NEC, we are using one of the models, which is called PUT, or let me say SaaS, pay per service or pay per data. We started for smart metering, and now we are, for example, get our payment through the data that we provided to the service providers in electricity or water. And there's other utilities coming soon. The third stakeholder is the academia. We cannot continue our lives without the academia, or let me say the sustainable development, because whenever we say sustainable development, it's always linked with the academia and the research and the R&D. And then we have also the SMEs. If you are going to speak about the digital economy, and we want to provide, create new opportunities, the SMEs are very, important for us. So we can, empower, let me say, or improve the infrastructure or technology by giving these opportunities for SMEs. And the last one is the most important for me, is the main player, the individuals, me, you, and all of the people who are attending today this event, because we are the one who are going to experience living in these cities, or let me say experience using some of these smart solutions. So if we can go with these, this smart ecosystem, we're going to succeed, because we're going to cover all the different stakeholders in our communities. So this is great what they can share, and I can see that most of the countries in the Middle East are now doing great. Everyone is now competing. Even when it comes to Oman, everyone, for example, coming to us and they say, we need to be the first smart city in Oman. And now we are working closely as a National Energy Center. We are working closely with the government so we can implement smart city projects. We are working also closely with 3 different organizations. And whenever we sign MOU, the other organization, they can say, why did you sign with them first? We wanted to be the first. So you can see there's now, competition between everyone, because also the government, they have to set some indicators for smart cities in order to see the progress of each city, so they can take them also as a good pilot project, so it can be at a national level also.
Yeah, thank you for Laila. Laila, I hope you can, adjust your internet, because sometimes it is saying it's a little bit weak and providing.
I'm really sorry about that. I got this issue today, and I was calling the NOC. It's got it 1 hour ago, and they told that they're going to fix it. Is it a lot, or hopefully it's not going to be worse?
Let's hope not. It's not going to be worse. With that, that's great. Let's move to. There's a question by Fahad Al Farah. Actually, it's a good question. Who certifies a city to be smart or not? Do we have official certificate for that, or officially approved parties that overlooks over? Is this?
Okay.
Yeah. The world ranking, of course.
Okay.
Every year they put the ranking. This is the top 10 smart cities in the world, and all of this. So, yeah.
And this is actually a good question, and it's one of my favorite, to be honest with you. For example, when I mentioned Gamarash, when I went to Gamarash, part of the IGAV, the United Nations office, I was just focusing on smart city indicators. So when it comes to these, certificates, you'll find different organizations, Fahad, who are going to say, we're gonna give you this certificate. We have ISO certificate, so we can have, certified that you are smarter. For example, let me show you. In my office, I'm keeping this as my KPI. For my team brought it to me, and they say, oh, there's some certificates that we need to work on it, so we can get, so we can support the projects that we are working with them closely. You will find a lot, and it's becoming like a marketing. And to me, I feel that we need to set our own, indicators, because every city, it has a unique theme. Every country, it is different than the other country. We can learn from the other countries, but when it comes to these certificates, it is something like global. It's similar to when you are getting your bachelor degree, you are getting global certificates. It's getting the same, just for global ranking. But if you want it at your country level, or let me say at city level, we should write it by ourselves. For example, as I said, if you want to consider our smart city, smarter, do we have, for example, schools, or what are the number of schools? Does these schools, for example, have technology, have labs? Is it flexible when we, register our kids and so on? Do we have hospitals nearby? Do we have playgrounds? I will give you one example, for example. Sometimes, we'll find kids playing on the streets. So how can we make sure that the kids are not playing on the streets? We have schools closed after, when it's not used. So why not using the same years of schools for the kids to go back? Why not to encourage our kids to love school by going back and playing there instead of playing on the, streets? Instead of investing and, building new play yards for our kids, we should have our own criteria. So that's why I'm saying everyone has his own criteria, because you might have all of these, utilities, but we need just to manage them very well. And each city has its unique theme. For example, here in Oman, we have different environments. We have the beach, we have the coast, the mountains, and we have also the desert. So every city is really unique. Even when you visit the different cities of Oman, people, how they are welcoming you, it's totally different from one city to city. For example, my home city town is Nizwa, and we are famous with making dates. If you go to Sur is in the, very close from the coast. They don't deal a lot with the dates, mostly with the seafood. So you can see we are mostly heritage and they're seafood. So even when it comes to the jobs, which kind of jobs that we can provide it for the people who are living in Nizwa, and which kind of jobs that we can provide it for the people in Sur, which are very close from the sea. If they are very close from the sea, okay, we can have, for example, projects, touristic places, touristic locations, or let me say touristic activities, very close from the beach and the sea. And when it comes to Nizwa, it is historical, so we can organize, the city to be smarter based on the heritage or the old buildings, the market, and so on. So that's how we're gonna do it when it comes to our cities. So we have to have our city, our own basic, and so on. I hope that I have been answering your question, Fahad.
Yeah, I think there's a follow-up question from Gregory. Possible to give a smart city certificate? I don't think so. It will define its own level of smart. This is what you answered.
Gregory, I totally agree with you. We can, as I said, we can go with the global certificates because sometimes we need it just to market for ourselves. But when it comes to the level of smartness, I think it's about our people. What our people will need it. Because sometimes you might get the global certificate, but are the people happy and satisfied? So I'm always saying, don't just focus on the global certificate. Think about the people in your area. Are they happy and satisfied? And I remember, once I visited one of the countries and they are leading in the e-government. And I was telling them, wow, you are ranking top of e-government. They say, really? That look, they said, really? So we have to make sure that, that first we should work closely with our people to make them satisfied and happy. Then we go to the global certificates. Some people, they go first to the global certificates so they can say, oh, see what we are doing. Then they come back and they work with the, their cities, or let me say the people. So for me as a Laila, I will say always start working with your people. Start making people feeling happy and satisfied about their own cities.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just gonna say to our YouTube.
I agree with you. Yes, the end user definitely is what make people happy about that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say to our YouTube viewers that we're taking your questions from YouTube. So if you are watching us from YouTube, we will take them also here. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Fahad, for your very interesting questions. And Fahad also says, yes, you answered his question. Thank you for that. So let's move on our scheduled. What makes Oman really a leader in the smart cities? And I know they are a leader. What is it doing right versus others? If you don't mind sharing some high-level tips.
First, thank you so much for considering us, leading, and we are still, let me say, we're still in our earlier journey. So as I said, the collaboration between all the stakeholders that I have mentioned earlier, the government, private sector, academia, SMEs, and, the individuals, this is what will make us, successful and work together. And I'm really, as I said, what makes now, for example, successful, that we as a private sector, we are working very closely from the government. Because we signed MOU, the first MOU that we have, signed, it was with the ministry because they were leading smart city at Oman level with the technology. So said, we're gonna be your partner. So we gonna start in implementing smart solutions. We started in National Energy Center as, smart utilities. And when I say smart utilities, it's always about the basic service that we as citizens we are looking for, which are, the water, the electricity, the energy, the gas metering. So these are the basic services. I am, as a citizen, I will really feel happy and satisfied at home. Because, many times you'll find people complaining. For example, suddenly they will find the increase with their bills. So the National Energy Center started the first, project in 2018. They said, let us propose smart metering. Because, actually till today, not everyone, they have the smart metering. We still have, cities that has, the manual metering, and some cities, they have the smart metering. And if I can show you, let me show you one of the examples. As soon as I moved to here, I started dealing with these sensors, because these sensors are the smart metering that now we are using. It has the electronic, for example, because in the past, it was, you should send somebody to read your, data, your consumption for 1 month. And most of the old houses, they have these measuring inside the house. So if he come and find your home locked, he will return back and he said, I couldn't find anyone, so he will not read your data. So they will make, like prediction. What is your consumption for this month based on the previous months? You might not be your home, you might not be using your, electricity or water because you are away, for example, for 1 or 2 months. So imagine that you are coming back and you find the bill of this month similar to the previous month. What will be your action? You will definitely be, upset about that. So we thought, how can we, make people happier by bringing technology, by improving the quality of life? So improving quality of life, making people happier and satisfied about the services that we are giving to them. Because nowadays people are paying taxes. So in return, they pay taxes, so they are expecting to get good services. So we started with the smart metering, and now we are expanding. And when I say we are expanding, every day we are, asking ourselves, what today we are going to do? What is the next solution that we are going to present for Oman? The good news that we are expanding. We have already signed different MOUs with 3 more organizations. So we're gonna start implementing some solution with the smart environment, because we care a lot about the environment. And I already discussed that earlier with you, Rودي. If you want to make, feel stable and happy in our cities, we have also to make sure that we have, clean air, it is clean environment where we can live peacefully on it. Also trying to provide some smart solutions with the smart lighting, for example, smart traffic lighting, smart parking, and smart security. So we are a little bit expanding step by step. Last time I got one inquiry. Even now, people started thinking differently. Now people started thinking just like us. They said, Laila, we have a cyclone Shaheen. How can it help us in forecast, in the weather forecasting? They said, can the IoT solutions help us? And I said, definitely, the technology can help us to predict such, assumptions that we can, alert people about a coming cyclone and so on, because we do have some, alerts and so on. But, the amount of water and the wind that, because many people, they were, locked in their houses for 2 to 3 days without food. That was really so much difficult, and said we need to find solution. So now people, they are thinking about challenges and how can we use the technology to improve their services, or let me say the quality of life for future. And I'm really so happy about that, because in the past nobody was talking like that. Now people are thinking differently.
Yes, thank you. Things are really changing in the world of smart cities, and actually our expectation and the citizen expectation is also changing. And
Exactly.
Lovely to see governments leading those roles, or these roles, to enhance people's life and make it even better. So as we said, technology is one of the main pillars in smart cities. And we have many other pillars, of course. What is the role of the citizen in this case, in the smart cities quadrant?
They should be the one who plan with the government. Government should not plan for projects without engaging the citizens. Sometimes you'll find projects, but it fails because the citizens will not be feeling satisfied about it, and nobody will use that project. For example, let me tell you one thing. Sometimes some cities, for example, nowadays people, they started cycling a lot. They started to take care well of their health and so on. So people started complaining why we are not having, for example, a well-planned area so we can do cycling, because we have roads, but we don't have a place for the people who are cycling and so on. So if we are going, for example, to plan for that area, we should let people be part of it, because people, they would know the area of their cities better than the people from outside. Because whenever it comes to the projects, I'm based on Muscat, so how comes I can know about my city in Israel very well? If anyone is coming from outside the city, they will not know the nature of that city. So it's better to let people involved in the planning, and they say what you really want, what are your challenges, so we can solve it and so on. So we can have different approaches, Rodi. We have to involve people earlier when it comes to the planning. If we want to make our cities smarter, and it comes to the smart solutions, we have to give them a proper also, let me say, awareness how they are going to use these smart solutions. Till today, we have a lot of smart, services, but people, they don't know about it. And sometimes we have to push people harder in order to use these solutions. Sometimes you might use the shock element, so you can tell them it's no more. This service is available, on paper. You have to use it by using your mobile, for example. So we have to make sure to let people use these services, because we create these services for people so they can use it peacefully with quality of life.
Yeah, it's a great, the citizen is really part of this big game. It's not just somebody outside. As you said earlier on, universities, NGOs, and so on, they are all key elements of these smart cities. What is sustainable smart cities now?
Okay, sustainable, as I mentioned earlier, it's the city that I'm going to live on it and never think to leave it. I'm not bothered about the security or the safety, because I feel secure actually there. But let me share one story with you. Because I live in Muscat, and one of the reasons why we left our old house, because suddenly it became crowded, because that area, it's very close from the university. Many students started living in that area. Many foreigners started living there. So we get stuck on it with the traffic. No more we are able to walk like before. No more we are feeling that peace of mind. Every time we just hearing the noise and so on. So after 20 years, living in that area, we moved. Why we moved? Because we couldn't find, the happiness, or let me say, the sustainability that we are looking for. We are not happy and we are not feeling safe. And some, crimes started, appearing as soon as we are leaving our home. We come back and we find some robberies or something, terrible happening to our area. So it becomes very crowded and not peaceful. So if we want, to define the sustainability, is where I'm going to feel happy and safe. And that is how I can define, the sustainable, cities from my point of view. Some people, they might argue with me, but for me, as I always say, it's about the happiness and safety.
I like your answer. It really, makes some sense to all of us, I think. So now let's go a little bit on there's some questions here. Hold on. What are the priorities at the moment in building smart cities from digital perspective? For example, is it infrastructure, better connectivity, more affordable connectivity, easy access, online ready infrastructure, cost saving? I know that also there's the 5G element now playing a role in smart cities. What is the most, let's say, important one now, the priorities?
Okay. I'm really glad that you asked this question, because let me share with you our experience in Oman. Everyone is speaking about the IoT solutions, the IoT sensor, the data, and so on. Actually, you cannot implement these solutions if you do not have the connectivity, because the connectivity, because all of us now, we are connected to each other by Wi-Fi and so on. But if you are going to speak about the smart solutions, these solutions are connected to different connectivity. They have a private network. So when we started in 2018, the project, we said we are going to use the smart metering. We have to think about the connectivity. So we said, let us make sure that we have connectivity. So we were the first to bring the connectivity infrastructure, and we collaborated with one of the our partners in telecommunication. It was Ooredoo, and we are using LoRa connectivity. So you cannot say, I'm going to implement IoT solutions without having that infrastructure. Make sure, and you have to check for each country. Every country, they have their own connectivity, because some countries, for example, they are not using LoRa connectivity, they are using different connectivity and so on. So we started first with the infrastructure as connectivity, then we started with our solutions. That's how we started. So make sure if you are going to, I can see on the chat, it's really good question about, the technology, and are we really bringing some technology from Europe and China? Yes. We are trying always to analyze the best solution that we can implement in Oman. For example, when it comes to the smart lighting, what is really the solution that we need to implement here in Oman? So we do analysis for different companies and see, can we use this connectivity with our own connectivity? Is it, aligned and so on? So based on the analysis we do and the challenges that we face and so on, we then bring the best solution that we can implement in our own country. And we are trying to expand to have our own IoT factory, because as I said, we are dealing mostly with the IoT solutions. So we decided as soon as this company has been established, we also trained around 25 Omanis. We sent them to Poland, and they get well trained there for 4 months, just so they can understand the configuration of these IoT solutions. So now we are preparing our factory, because it's really challenging sometimes, because the market is expanding and we are getting our smart metering from outside, from our partners. So we decided to have our own factory so we can produce our own IoT smart metering in this factory. And the other thing that we are going to do, we're going to expand not just with the IoT solution, with the robots. And this is the good news that I can share it with all of you, because we start with IoT solutions. Now we are going to the robots. Why we need the robots? Mostly with the smart manufacturing, because some factories, they will need these robots so it can, improve and accelerate the process of manufacturing.
Interesting. So there's a strategy now is being enhanced as we speak.
Yes, because there's now a big demand on the market. So no more just bringing. We have to start by ourselves, making these solutions.
Yeah. Fahad, do you mind asking the question live if you want?
Sure. Can we have a measurement example for KPI related to heritage cities that is built for historical places and tourism? And do we have any sample in the world saying that this heritage city is a smart city?
I hope that I will be able to answer that, Fahad. And it's really interesting because, when I mentioned Nizwa, we have actually two historical cities in Oman, Al-Hamra city and Nizwa city. They are considered as heritage cities. But till now, we don't have, our measurement. But, you know how they started? People by themselves, they started. And I always feel proud about, giving example of these two cities because we have old houses. And Oman, Oman is one of the old countries with history when it comes, compared historically around the world. We have a lot of mud houses. We have houses built of mud. And these mud houses, it's no more, lived by people. So it becomes abandoned. And because becoming abandoned, people started immigrating from these cities, going to the modern places and so on. So what happened on these cities? People in that areas, they started counting the mud houses. They say, how many mud houses we have? We need to re-innovate these houses so it can be used again. Because when I said we are solving some challenges in these cities, what was the challenge? First, we are losing history. We are losing people moving from that area. People are no more feeling happy or secure because, some people, let me say, the ones who are out of law started to hide on these mud houses because nobody is going there. Nobody's living there. So they said, okay, if you want to do any crime, let us just hide in these mud houses. So you can see what happened as, different challenges on these cities. As soon as the people of that city started thinking, how can we improve our cities? How can we attract more people to come back again to our cities? They re-innovate these houses. So they re-innovate it and they transfer it to hotels. Nowadays, these, buildings, or let me say these cities, are becoming very popular in Oman and outside Oman. Now we are getting people from outside Oman just to visit these old houses because, they re-innovated to be historical and also it can be also touristic places. So how we can consider it as smart? The return of investment, the happiness, the safety, the number, for example, of visitors. So as I said, Fahad, we have to set the criteria by ourselves. So now they have number of visitors. Now they have number of new jobs for the, they used, the modern tourism with the old tourism. Now, for example, the old re-innovated cafes inside these mud houses. And, recently I saw people are driving from Muscat to these cities around 2 hours just to take photos with one of the coffee shops in these mud houses. So you can see that now you are attracting people from outside to visit you. And you also have provided some jobs for the people in that city. So you can say the number of jobs that you have, provide for the people in that village, the income that, the people of that city, they have, returned back, the level of safety, security, and the level of happiness. Are people satisfied or not satisfied? So this is some of just, the main criteria that we can set it for the historical or heritage cities.
Interesting. Thank you for that. And thank you, Fahad. Don't know, Gregory, I don't know if you want to take your other part of the question and take live. Hi, Gregory. Or we answered your question. It's okay. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. You already answered my question. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to add any other questions, it's your chance to.
Yes, I would actually. I was wondering. I find it a very nice initiative or innovative approach.
Where are you from?
Yeah. I'm calling from the Netherlands.
From?
The Netherlands.
Netherlands. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, from Europe. Yeah. So now I was listening to your story about the historical cities in Oman and the very interesting turn you've done to it because of people leaving the area and losing let's say a lot of your history, and now you have basically given it new life by making it a tourist attraction, creating a situation where you have visitors coming to the area, which will keep it alive and of course preserve your history, which is great. I think it's a very good way to do it, and I know cities in Europe that have some of the same problems, so they could do that actually as well. A question I had was, do you also plan to include technology, let's say in these areas, let's say for example with connectivity or facilitating maybe applications, to make also the visit and the experience of tourists and also the people who work there, more lively, more that they can, let's say, get even a better experience while they're visiting the area.
Definitely, as I said, when I introduced myself, my interest is about the smart tourism. So it's about how we can take the experience of the people so they can attract more visitors to that areas. So we are speaking about smart cities, especially when we speak about smart tourism. How can we really empower the tourism in these cities by bringing life to it? So how we are going to use the technology? It's about the data, and we say about the data. The data can be, the photos, can be the information about these cities, can be about the restaurants, and so on. So the availability of these, data information, online and globally, this will definitely, increase the number of visitors. And sometimes we also have to make sure it's not over tourism, because sometimes, during the public holidays, you'll find it crowded. So we have also to use the data so people can, be aware that if we are going this time, we might not find parking. So how can we improve it? By checking, for example, online or through the platforms that we are going to use. Most of the people now, for example, they use Google Maps. So they can see, is it crowded or not? Should we go now or not? So we have to make sure always, that we are using these data so we can improve, because also we don't want to make a traffic in these areas that we are bringing life to it. So thank you so much, Gregory, for that question. And, my interest to, talk more about the smart tourism.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks. And very interesting, I think. Zaina has a question. What's next for Smart Cities Future? Anything that would connect citizens globally? I think this is the next, chapter of smart cities.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. The first thing, Zainab, we are already connected, and you can see from this platform, we are all here connected from different countries talking together. So I feel we are not, far away from that. And, even nowadays, when it comes, for example, to the improvement of the services, everyone now, they started talking about the e-passport. We are no more going to hold our passport, for example. For example, one of the things that I'm really so much happy to share with you, we used to have, for example, most of our cards, printed and so on. Nowadays, we have, Oman Royal Police is, the entity that is, issuing, for example, our license or ID card or passports. The good news now, we have now application, and whenever, I log to my mobile, I can find most of my details there. Now, we used in the past, everyone, they said, can you please send me a photo of your ID? So we have to take, by camera, our ID card or license and so on. Nowadays, it's all in one application. So imagine that if we're going to have this connected with different cities, with different countries, definitely that's not far away, because we started to have it, nowadays inside our countries. So I'm sure we're going to have that very soon connected with the other, cities, or let me say countries. And we can see that when we travel, we can experience, is it really smart or not smart? What will really make me, go back to that country? It's from the smart service in their airport. Are they flexible or not flexible? If they are flexible, you will not spend long time in the airport. If they are complicated and not are smart, you might stay there for 3 hours. So I'm always, for example, for me, measuring the smartness of airports with the duration of time I'm spending in each airport.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you, Zaina, for that question. And just to let you know, guys, follow Laila on LinkedIn if you have any, she's one of those leaders. Follow her on LinkedIn if you have any other questions or follow-up questions, or even to network with Laila. She's a dear friend, and would love to you connect with her. Also, for any certificate of participation, don't forget to fill out the form. And Mahesh, we're gonna, I don't know, Laila, because Mahesh came late. I think you already mentioned about net zero and circular economy and how will it handle. If you mind just briefly answering back, Mahesh, so we can move to our next.
Okay. Thank you, Mahesh, for asking this question. And as I said, and I'm repeating that a lot. Why we need the smart solutions in smart cities is just to improve the quality of life, so we can live in a very clean environment. And one of our projects that we are now working on, it is the smart environment solutions, where we can provide, for example, IoT solution. It can monitor the climate, the net zero carbon and so on. So you can now use these IoT solutions, so it can have different reading for the parameters and so on. And because what is really happening, we have industrial cities, and people are living really close from these industrial areas. So we need to have these IoT solutions, so we can monitor, is it really safe for people to live in these areas or not? Does this factor following the safety and the HSC for the environment or not? So it is becoming mandatory, and it's not luxury, because people, they used to say to have these solutions is like luxury, so we can show off how we are smart. When it comes to the environment, it's really mandatory. Every country, they should use these solutions, so they can monitor the progress of the weather and the quality of weather, the carbon, the oxygen living in that city. So really, thank you so much, Mahesh, for bringing this back. So I consider it always as something mandatory. Now we are starting just with our first smart solutions in Duqm industrial area. As soon as we implement this solution successfully, we are going next to the environment authority. Why we are going there? Because as I said, it has to be mandatory in every country, not luxury. Hope that I have answered your question, Mahesh.
Yeah, thank you. From Osama, as we know, smart cities have IoT infrastructure. How can smart cities ensure data privacy and security for the resident? Can it have a negative side of smart cities? Thank you, Osama, for that question.
Okay, Osama, whenever we are becoming smarter, we are getting more threats with the cyber security, because and we have to be very careful about that. And people are really becoming smarter to hack our lives, to hack our technology and so on. And that's really affecting some countries, the economy of the countries. So always have to be careful about that. So when it comes to the IoT, we have to make sure that we are implementing our solutions based on the connectivity, because there is some procedures. For example, for each connectivity, there is some process that you have to follow up, so you can make sure that your solutions are secure. And when it comes to the people, we have to make sure that they are always having the sustainable awareness how to secure themselves, because as I said, the hackers today are becoming really smarter. Every day they are bringing some new methodology to hack people and so on. So we have also to be smarter, to think just like them, how we can really prevent or let me say, how can we really secure ourselves and be safe. We have just to keep aware, and when it comes to the IT, just follow the procedures with our connectivity.
Yeah, I have a question from YouTube from Lama. Lama asks, is smart cities aligned to national security or the security force? How is it managed out?
That's a really good question. And as I said, the smart cities should be aligned with different sectors in any country, because being smart, it means going to affect also the security of the nation and so on. And as I just now mentioned with Mahesh's question, sometimes the cybersecurity is affecting the digital economy of countries. Many countries, they paid a lot. They lost a lot because of that, because of the security threats and so on. So yes, it has to be aligned. Yeah, we cannot work differently along with them.
Just gonna see, I'm still here. Hayam, are you with us? Yeah, do you mind asking your question live, Hayam? Because I think it's very interesting question.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I'm from Beirut. Yeah, I'm a kind of dreaming because we need all the infrastructure to be built again before going into smart city in Beirut and in Lebanon. But just I had this question in mind: do you plan for bikes like in Amsterdam and electric cars that you can rent from streets in your smart city in your area? This is my question. I don't know if it's clear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the story of Al-Hamra city, they started on these cities, the people by themselves. They started, for example, they say, as I say, there's like new jobs started, or let me say new business opportunities started with these people because they saw that they have some tourists coming to their areas. So they started, for example, providing bikes to be rented by citizens, or let me say the tourists, when they visit these areas. So as it is, improving, people are demanding to have more and more. So hopefully we're gonna see that soon. And sometimes, when it comes to the, providing the green transportation, it is different from one country to another country. For example, for us in the Gulf countries, we have the hot weather. It will be difficult for us to drive most of the time. We're just driving during the winter. Because during the summer, we're gonna avoid. It's really impossible to be outside. So it will be, based on each country how they can manage that.
Yeah, thank you, Hiyam. I'm gonna take one or two last questions, if you don't mind, Laila. I know your time is running. One from YouTube from Marie. Marie says, thank you, Laila, beautiful session. Who are the top Arab cities versus the world smart cities as per ranking?
Well, that's really a difficult question to answer. So because every city they will say we are the best, we are leading. I can say, okay, we are Oman, we are leading. So it's really difficult for me to answer that. I can just, experience when I said about Gumaraj, because I visited Gumaraj. So I have to visit, different countries so I can compare about this, this.
Yeah.
And every time I like to give you really comparison. And as I say, every country is unique with its own culture, with its own theme and so on. So I'm sure that, every country is in advance in something.
Yeah, maybe leading in something versus some other country.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you. We're going to take the last question from Gregory. And then Gregory, I'm going to ask you again, please ask it live. So with that, we will conclude and we will thank Laila for being with us.
Sure. Thanks, Rudi. Laila, considering that, let's say maybe 85% of future applications will be mobile or wireless, what's your perspective on, let's say, building smart cities on last mile connectivity solutions? Is Oman considering fiber, wireless, or maybe a mix of these? There's different approaches in different countries. I don't know if this is something.
But Gregory, I want to ask you the same question for yourself in your city. What do you think?
Yeah, well, that's a nice question from your side. In my experience, what I've seen, for example, I work in Europe, but I also work a lot with the US and Latin America. So I give you the two perspectives. If you look at Europe right now, as you know, a lot of Europe already has a lot of fiber. Right, so fiber was obviously the first way to connect, but they're noticing that as new applications will be more wireless, it makes sense to implement now wireless technologies. Everybody's talking about 5G, but there are different options to implement wireless technology. So even having maybe 90-95% covered fiber, now they're starting to implement wireless solutions. So this is becoming obviously the mindset has changed, or they're seeing this as a need. Now there's also technologies where you probably even can skip the fiber side and go straight into wireless technologies. So you actually save costs because you don't put the fiber first, you do the wireless technology, and then you maybe strengthen with fiber. If you look at the US is still building a lot of fiber. So what I expect is that they're going to invest a lot of money in fiber at the moment, but they're going to end up spending much more money in by having to do everything over again with wireless technology. So if you look at, let's say, more from a, let's say, connectivity and efficiency perspective, if a country wants to make sure that everybody's connected, it's much faster to go with, let's say, more advanced wireless technologies to cover, you know, larger areas, more people with this very good quality of connectivity, rather than going, let's say, a very expensive and very slow route of fiber, because this takes longer. You don't connect as many people, and we know how important digital connectivity is becoming, and even more so at the moment. So.
Thank you, Gregory. I'm gonna jump back to Laila.
That's really interesting, Gregory, because you know, when it comes to Oman, we have a mix of both. We started with the fiber, but when we started with our own companies, we started with the wireless. That's why we say we are the ones that we started with the connectivity infrastructure, because it was not there. And it was easy for us, for our IoT smart solutions, to use our LoRa connectivity. So now we are having it as both. And when it comes to the expanding, somebody prefers still the fiber, and some they say, okay, the connectivity is more, expensive for us, and so on. So we, for each solution, you will say this might work better than this solution. So we have it so far now, both of them.
Yeah, Laila, do you think saying in a smart way, in the developed countries, it is better to maybe invest in the wireless last mile versus traditional fiber? I know it depends on every country, but because the amount of investment needed for the fiber there and the last mile to be, it's going to have a lot of, versus the wireless, I know there's a lot of difference here, and the coverage and, what do you think as one key element it will be in that perspective?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to go for that, because I said I'm just answering at Oman level that we are having it as a mix, and when it comes to the connectivity, we are still having some challenges. For example, we cannot, for example, implement our solutions if we are not going to have the coverage of this network in that area. And it's becoming more challenging because you go to different country. For example, we cannot implement our solutions in our neighbor country because they are not using the same connectivity. And for example, for the fiber, it will be the same fiber and so on. But when it comes to the connectivity, you have different connectivities. You have to make sure that everyone is using that connectivity. So I might not be able to answer it correctly, but for us, it's becoming challenging. So it based on the type of your connectivity. We use the 5G, but there's like different connectivities in order to use the data and connect these solutions together.
This is where globalization hopefully one day will join it into one frame, not just framework, as also the technology to be able to interact all together. And this is where we're seeing, I think, China making a leap, because they are as a big government, as a big number of people with a big geographical area, were able to implement. But the minute you step out of that zone, it's totally different, and different technologies. And this is where I'm just going to name few, not for the advertisement, but this is where Huawei is developing their own IoTs and so on of technologies where Untitled, and where they sleep for a long time, to safeguard batteries that might not be interoperable with other Ericsson, or maybe Cisco is also developing, or whatever other technologies they're also developing, where they don't integrate or interact with each other. And hopefully we will see that merge within the next couple of years. We are still in the game of smart cities. So let me just do
Can I just mention one thing? Just say, I would say to keep an eye, without mentioning any names, keep an eye on Europe as well in terms of this, especially this interconnectivity you mentioned, Rudi and Laila, because there are technologies now available where the technology already includes different types of connectivity. So whether it's LoRa, NB-IoT, Wi-Fi, 4G, 3G, whatever, which all interact together. So basically in one network, you can have all these different types of interactions, which also gives you the possibility to install in other areas using your same technology, but in such a network. So you don't have to adapt to the network. The network adapts to you. And
I think this is the future of
right.
interoperability between vendors. It's the next
exactly
step.
yeah. Now this already exists. That's why I'm mentioning it. So it's not so far in the future. It's already there. So it's more about knowing about it and then experimenting with it, I would say.
Thank you for that. I'm just gonna call out Omar Dahan. Omar, I messaged you earlier on. If you don't mind, please to respond on my message, so we can have a chat. Also, I'll take this opportunity to call you out. Laila, I'm gonna thank you. I just checked the chat and YouTube and other channels. We don't have any last question. What do you think is the last recommendation you can give for the last, before we end our session?
Okay, my last will be, people are, the main drivers for smart cities. Sometimes you might be me or you, Rudi, or anyone here, Gregory, or anyone, Fahad, we are going to lead the smart cities. Sometimes we are initiating that. We're going to make impact on our cities to make it smarter. So we should not wait anyone. If you are really interested to make it smarter, let us take it and go and start with one just action. And this is why I'm always saying about Al Hamra city, the historical city, the people themselves. It was one guy who started. Everyone fight him because he wanted to do a new change for his city. And nowadays, everyone is just, changing just the way that he did. So we might have like one leader who can have an impact on his city.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you, Fahad, for your comment. I appreciate it. Just again, if you want to follow Laila Hadhrami on LinkedIn, and don't forget, if you want a certificate of attendance, do fill the form. I'm gonna thank you, Laila, a lot for this really not just interactive and full of wealth of information and value. And thank you for all who participated and asked the question to make this more important with your presence. Thank you again, Laila. We'll be talking more. Appreciate it. I'll be here for other questions and messages meanwhile. And in the same time, thank you and have a great week ahead and enjoy. And thank you for being on DX Talks.
Thanks a lot, and I would like really to thank you, Rudi, so much. And what really makes this session really interesting, the questions raised by different participants, I really learned from them. So thank you so much. And it was really interesting to be part of it. And hopefully we're gonna connect more and more because the world is becoming closer with the connectivity. So hopefully we're gonna meet again in different events. So thanks again. And I have now to run, so I can follow up another event that I have to attend, so I can learn something new about smart cities.
I know. That's why for you, it's time for you.
Yeah, because we have one physical session is going to start at 6 p.m., which is almost after less than half hour, and it is one of the urban planning experts. So I need to catch that session so we can learn more about it.
Enjoy.
Around the world.
Good luck. Thank you.
This is the blessing of knowledge sharing it around the world. So hopefully to see you again, Rudi, and thanks again for hosting me.
Thank you a lot, Laila.
Okay, bye-bye.
So again, as we said, thank you guys for being here. And I think this was super amazing with a sweet person. I'll be taking any questions you have related to anything. And also don't forget to fill out your certificate of attendance if you need one. And I want to thank you again, everybody who attended. It was awesome.